Noticed a lot of videos online for various projects with the C4 Corvette, but hadn't found any that really went into depth with a sport seat rebuild. So here I've got a 1991 base model coupe two-door, and the sport seats haven't been touched in 30 years. So just various items that need to be repaired. We'll walk through those in this video. Okay, first things first, this is a 1991 C4 Corvette that had the upgrade for the sport seats. And the sport seats on this model have a couple of cool features. First is a bolster system that is a air compressor, and you can hear the bolster motor on this particular seat works. However, there's no inflation occurring in the back. And it's because of the bladders, as GM called them, in the back are just not made to last 30 years. And we'll see that when we open the seat up and you can see what falls out. The second feature, which is pretty cool with this, is a bolster support on either side of the seat. And you can see that's actuated by the switch right here, and you're hearing nothing. It's common for those motors to go out, but it's also common for the switch itself. So when we get the seat apart, we'll figure out. Once the clamp's free on the front, then you can lift the cushion up. This actually, seats are in pretty good shape for the driver's side, not so much wear. The passenger side's completely clean. But on this particular model, you can just lift this up, being careful not to damage the electrical. Okay, so I've removed the 4 bolts that hold the seat in, and you can see that's free now. There's also a connector that is inside the seat, which you can see the cable which goes here. To get at that, you just have to cut a zip tie and then come from the top of the seat to disconnect, and I'll show that in a second. Okay, the seat connector that goes to the bolster motor, actually the power, goes to both the bolster and the inflator, the lumbar support. It's really simple. You just press on the tab on the top and it pops right out. Okay, we got the seat out of the vehicle and on a bench, and now it's time to get into the guts. So I'm on this particular vehicle, didn't want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars for the restore, so we're doing sort of a budget rebuild. There are straps that you can purchase from Top Flight and Eckler's that replace the original factory straps that go from here to here, which support the seat itself. As you can see here, I just use a bungee, which seems to be working fine for this vehicle. The one thing that you can't get a replacement for on the cheap is the switch for the seat, and I believe that's what's wrong with this one, why the bolster motor isn't working. We'll test that in a second to make sure, but I went ahead and ordered new parts for this, and we'll show when those go in. The next part is to get the 3 things that need to be rebuilt: the seat straps themselves, the bolster motor and or the bolster switch, and then the lumbar support. And you can see just pieces of that have fallen out here. And when I take this off, you'll see when I shop vac it out and get all those pieces removed. But that's just sitting in the seat back here. So in order to get access to that, you have to remove the cushion from the seat back, the hard plastic molded piece. And that's just done by pulling on the back here. You'll find 2 metal clamps that it's fixed to the seat back. If you can release those, then that'll pop off. And then similar down towards the bottom here, there's some metal bars that hold that back. But get the top one off first, it's a lot easier. Okay, so I just popped those off, so I want to show what this looks like. All I did was get my hand in here and then push against, in this direction, which allowed this clip to come out, and then I just pulled to allow the other clip to come out. You can see how those are fixed there, and then there is the metal that it attaches to. Time to do the bottom. Okay, with the top attached, you can see the clips on either side here. So all you have to do is just pull those in. Let's see if I can do it. There we go. And on the other side, same thing. And then you can remove the seat back. So I just want to note quickly, the cushion has fabric on the outside, and then the bolster is sandwiched between the two, which we'll see in a second when I remove these hog rings. However, I wanted to just point out, when you actually remove the seat back, if yours hasn't been touched in 30 years, you'll notice that the bladder itself, the connectors, the 3 connectors for the different sections of the bladder usually will just break off like that. And again, it's the same material that's just has the plastic material, which hasn't aged. The other piece is this guy, very simple connector. You just lift the top and off it comes. I'll pull out the shop vac in a second to clean this up, but just to get you an idea of what you can expect, that is the bladder after 30 years. So the original bladder has 3 chambers, and you can see those here. And effectively, the pump blows up all 3, and then the driver or the passenger can press a button to release pressure in each one of those to kind of dial in the right feeling. So, I thought I could replace those potentially using a smaller bladder. And so I found these online. This is essentially for veterinary care. This is a blood pressure cuff for animals. And you can see here they're much smaller than a normal blood pressure cuff. I looked at the way these inflate, and it's a very small pocket. So I ended up deciding that wasn't going to work. You probably wouldn't even feel that. So I went ahead and ordered a replacement arm pressure cuff for a human arm pressure device, and you can see that here it's much larger, and this works well on the passenger seat. So that's what I'm going to do here to the driver's seat. We'll show how that goes in a second. So you can see here on the blood pressure cuff, there's essentially 2 sections. This is the area that has the bladder, and then this is the area that just wraps around, the person's arm with Velcro on it. Because we're going to be using this in a flat position as a replacement for the seat back lumbar support, what I do is I just take advantage of the fact that we have a Velcro piece on here to hold, and so I just affix it to itself. And then when this goes inside the seat, then you'll be able to have a nice flat spot that sits on your back. Right there. Okay, at the point where we're ready to remove the fabric to get access to the bladder, as I mentioned, there's these hog ring ties that are attaching the fabric to the cushion, the seat back cushion. And if you've never seen one of those, they look like this. This was just a random one that was floating inside the seat. Don't need that. I don't do a lot of upholstery work, so I don't have a hog ring tool. So I'm just going to show you what I plan to do using a pair of needle nose pliers, is to just turn the hog ring such that you have access to the seam right there. And then I'm just going to pry these apart and kind of leave it attached to the fabric so that when I'm ready to reattach the seat back, I can do that quickly. Okay, and once you get those hog rings off, and you can see how I've done that here just using a pair of pliers, you get Chevy confetti. That's 30 years worth of plastic, folks. Okay, now that we vacuumed out the seat back cushion and we've got most of that Chevy confetti cleaned up, it's time to reattach our new bladder. So, here's your pump, and you'll see this in here. This one happens to be working. A common part that fails in this is the diaphragm, which is inside it. And fortunately for me, this one is fine. It actually, when I hook it up to power, I can feel that it's blowing. So the lines also in here they're in really good shape. So whatever Chevy used for the actual tubing lines is fine. Whatever they used for the bladder is terrible. As you can see, that's come apart. So, in my case, because I'm doing this budget build, I'm just using this armrest cuff. That has, on most standard units, or at least on this one, it has 2 lines that are used to inflate the bladder. I don't know how it works in the actual medical application, but how it's going to work here is I have to attach those 2 to these 3. And what the motor does is it just inflates these 3 all equally from the pump itself. And then the user presses buttons to release pressure in each one of those individual valves. Since I just have 1 bladder, I'm just going to attach all 3 to 2. So what I'm doing is I'm using just a little splitter. You can pick this up from any hardware store to attach the 2 that are closest, the shortest, to have 1 outlet, and that will go to one of my blood pressure cuff fittings, and then the other one will just go directly to it, the longest one. And that way I have the longest reach to put this back into the seat back. Okay, so finished my fittings. Again, I just snipped these 2 and then used the T connector to plumb in one of the pressure hoses to the cuff. And then for the longer one, I just use the existing L and just attach that as well. This is going to be a little bit bigger than this, but it's okay. It's not under enough pressure where it really matters, and it's just air. So that's now connected. I also set up just a little way on the bench to test this. So if you have some alligator clips, connect those into the power input to the seat, which is the one that we disconnected from the vehicle. And then, if you have a car battery, a spare car battery, you can use that. I'm just using some power tool battery, which seems to be working quite well. And then just to show you how this works, I'm gonna actuate this switch here on this side here, and then you can I think that's plenty for, a seat back. I think you would definitely feel that. In fact, I know you will, because I tried it on the other side. And then, to release that, you just press the release switch on the middle here. I think the middle one's working. Yeah, and you can hear that hiss for it to, and then when the person's leaning against it, it deflates quickly. Okay, before we put that bladder back into the seat back, there's another issue to be addressed with this sport seat, and that is the bolster is not working, the bolster motor. So you can see I have this connected, I have power, but when I actuate the switch, I get nothing. The switch on the other side was barely able to move, so I knew it was the switch on that side. I'm not sure if it's the switch or the motor on this side, so I'm going to test that, and we'll be right back. Well, I just did a bench test on this motor, which you can see. Essentially the way this works is, you've got this electric motor, which then drives a gear, which actuates this bolster, and then via this linkage, this bolster as well. Now, I put voltage on this and I didn't get anything out of this motor, so I'm pretty sure this motor's bad, but I already bought a switch, so I'm gonna go ahead and replace the switch as well, just such that when the motor arrives, we'll know all those pieces are good. And I'll show you how to do that right now. GM really did a good job keeping these things from coming loose in its design. So that is good for longevity, but it's difficult on people who need to service it. So just real quickly, there's two pins on this connector, one here and one here. I just was able to wedge this pick in on this side. Let's see if you can see that. And then use the other side to pry it out, and it pops right out like that. Okay, I think I discovered why the old motors burned out, and that's because the old switch that I just replaced was given heat on this connector 24/7. I've since tested this new switch, and it only throws current when you actuate the buttons, which I think is pretty much the way it was supposed to work. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that. All right, so the replacement motor came in from, what's the name of this place? Vet to Vet, which is a vet salvage site online. And yeah, looks to be like in a pretty good fit for the one that's there. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull off. Okay, got the old motor out and off of the shaft that drives the other gear on the other side of the bolster seat. Just as a quick tip here, those are 8mm bolts. There's 3 of them that hold it in, and there's some washers. Be careful when you're taking this out, because these extension washers will fall out, and so just make sure you got something to catch those. So those are all the same size, so when you put them back in, they go back the same way. And to get out this, there's a little collar, and then the collar has a pin that holds it into the correct orientation. I just used a pair of needle nose pliers to get it most of the way, and then I used a pick and just hammered against this board to get that pin to come out all the way, and that's that. Okay, ready to bench test. Got the new motor in, and it works. Kind of a cool feature for an old vehicle like this. The motor actually does stop when it gets to full movement on either side. And then I just want to give a quick tip. When you're putting these 3 bolts back in on the motor, just go ahead and put that shaft washer back on, and then attach it to the motor. Just slide it through, it'll just hang out there. And attach the 3 bolts before you try to get the spline to mesh with the gear on the seat. This will help you from having parts fall out. Just a quick tip, I got the seat back cushion back back in, and the bottom piece is relatively easy to get in. You just get the 2 tabs on the metal hooks on either side, slide it up into position. You know, obviously you can tell to fit in the right spot. The top one can be a little bit more tricky. All I did was get one side in, push it all the way as far as I could against the right side, and then I used a pair of pliers, needle nose to come in on this side, and then just kind of push that tab in until it attaches. And you can feel it actually click, and it'll be pretty firmly in there. Okay, another quick tip. The first time I put the lumbar support tubes back in, I didn't put them on the inside of the support braces that actually snap the seat back to the shell, and that actually pinched the hose. So when you actuate the pressure release, it wasn't working. Now I routed that on the inside. As you can see, I don't know if you can see that here, but the lumbar support is indeed supporting. And that's again just using a arm pressure cuff bag. And then when I press this guy, if you can see that here, it's really only the center one, the black one, I think, that's letting the pressure out, but you can hear that hissing out there. That's it.